everybody, and welcome to the Wild Wahine. This is Kaylani, and this is your astro forecast for this week, November 15th through the 21st, where I take a couple of the transits that I think are the most important to your life, and you can learn about them and apply them in your life so that you can make fantastic choices and you can kind of roll with the weather as opposed to rowing against the current. So let's dig in. Pretty much the highlight of this week is going to be the full moon in Taurus, which is a partial lunar eclipse, but we have a lot of other things that are happening around that energy that are kind of supporting that in a lot of ways. So we're going to talk about them in detail. So we're starting off with the sun squaring Jupiter. It's also going to be sextiling Pluto. The sun just finished coming out of this trine to Neptune, where things were a little bit dreamy or a little bit confusing, or we've been living kind of in a dreamscape for the weekend and the end of the week. So now we're kind of back on track. We're back in the driver's seat of our lives. We have a lot more ambition. We're going after the things that we want. Jupiter a lot of times brings gifts. Now this is happening on the 15th and the 16th. We're going to be feeling this energy all the way into the 21st. So there's a lot more self-confidence, a lot more feelings of like personal power, going on your own hero's journey, feeling like you're really taking your life by the reins and you kind of have, all that you need to move forward in what you're doing. You might also receive some sort of gift at this time, something that you've been longing for, something that you've wanted. That is something that could come to play. You're just feeling like you're really in your power, especially with that sextile to Pluto. Now, some of the challenges that can come with that is we can have an overinflated ego. It can get a little too big, start bossing everybody around and telling them what to do and asking them why they're not listening to us because we're right. And we just have to check that, because whenever we have Sun and Jupiter together, that is very much a like, I am holding the space, I am holding court, I know what to do, and I like to be seen and I like to be visible, which is a fantastic thing. We just don't want to go like overboard and become like little mini dictators, so to speak, with that energy. Next up is the Mars opposition to Uranus. So Mars is in Scorpio right now. Uranus is in Taurus. This is going to be perfecting on the 17th, yet we'll feel it all week, at least until the 21st. With Mars in Scorpio, that is, energy that we've been having. This opposition to Uranus, though, energy that wants to move forward, energy that has its own idea of what it wants to do. It's a very masculine energy. Mars in Scorpio is its home sign. It's very specific. It's very targeted in terms of what it wants to do. It's almost surgical to some point. Courage, willpower, bravado, the belief that you can do something and that you want to do something and nothing can hold you back. And Uranus is kind of that rebellious energy that's coming in. So this could be a big movement towards something, people fighting for what they want. It can look like riots. It can look like a big breakthrough in your life. It can be a lot of different things. It can be on the more mundane level in terms of like what's happening on Earth. It can be, extreme weather, especially with that Uranus and Taurus, volcanoes, just extreme like hurricanes or things like that. But usually more of like the fire earth kind of element, so to speak. That's why I think of, volcanoes, and just it can be accidents, it can be eruptions, it can be explosions, missiles, things like that all come to mind, when we're talking about this opposition in the very mundane sense. But in the personal sense, if we take it back to that, it can be just a change, something that comes out of nowhere, people being an inciting incident is kind of that Uranian thing that makes everything kind of explode and go above and and beyond with that. So there's lots of things that are happening right now and that are kind of cooking and percolating in the background, and Uranus comes in there and it just makes it just so much bigger. Mars already wants to move, it already wants to be explosive, it's already very big and kind of going all over the place, and Uranus just comes in with that lightning bolt that just like takes it to the higher place. So you want to just be careful around accidents, you want to be careful with whatever it is that you're doing, that you're just taking all the precautions. Probably not the best time to be in like large spaces or to be like protesting. Just be careful about that, because things can get just heightened, especially with that like Sun squaring Jupiter. Everyone thinks that they're right, everybody thinks that they know what the truth is, what's really happening. They want to feel empowered, so you just want to be careful in those spaces. Now, Mercury is trining Neptune, which is interesting. The Sun just made this trine to Neptune as well. This is happening on the 18th. Again, we're going to be feeling that way into next week. So, this is pretty much like the story that we tell ourselves, the story that we tell each other, how we're communicating. Are we having truth in communications? With Neptune there, and even though Neptune is retrograde, which I tend to find, it tends to be a little bit more truthful than when it's direct, but still there is this possibility that the information that you have, that the things that you're agreeing upon, that what somebody is telling you or potentially what you're telling someone else is not true, that there's a kernel of truth, but it's a bunch of, it could be lies, or it could just be like illusions, things that you want to be true, but that are actually not really true, and genuinely. It could also be a great time, for daydreamers, for writers, people who are like working with imagination and things like that. It could be very intuitive and very psychic, and it's going to have this feel, if you have Mercury in Pisces, it's going to kind of feel like that energy. Very difficult to do the mundane, like your taxes and like organizing and all of those things. You'll have time for that when Mercury is squaring Jupiter later on, which is in just a couple of days, but this is more an imaginative space. So we just want to be careful though, with this energy. It's beautiful to like imagine and things like that and be in an illusion space and like to kind of tell tall tales. Again, it has like that big fish energy, if you've ever seen that movie. But it can feel very disorganized, like you don't have all of your stuff together. Like when you're signing contracts, you sign the wrong thing, and then that, there's a problem with that. It can be very much like the idiot savant, like I have all of these wonderful, great ideas, but like my underwear is on backwards and my shoes are not tied, and I have on like mismatched socks, so like the everyday detail things kind of sort of get left by the wayside. But like the ideas that you're having at this time, especially if you're like writing, or if you're creating something, if you're a musician, if you're a dancer, you're a writer, anything that really has to do with like words, or interpreting words, like words as pictures, that's why I say dance is an expression. It's just like a visual expression instead of using words. So all of that I think would be really supported right now if you're working in that aspect. But if you're doing like more mundane, everyday tasks, it might feel a little challenging. However, Mercury will be squaring Jupiter on the 20th, sextiling Pluto and Capricorn on the 21st. That energy is coming in at the latter part of the week, and we're going to be feeling it into next week. And so that will be the time where you're able to kind of sort of take all of those ideas and those imaginations and put them, make them concrete and actually like do something with them. So that's when you'll be able to take all of the ideas that you thought you wanted to do, or that you were imagining potentially to do, and saying, okay, how are we going to lay them out? How are we going to be very detailed in how we organize this big project? Because Jupiter is all about the big idea and the big projects and how you're going to break it down. So good time for planning and negotiating at that time. Good for public speaking and promotions if you're running any kind of like Black Friday deal for all my business people who watch the forecast. Really great time to get that out. Might be really good to get it out a little bit before even, because then, you're just kind of sort of working along with that energy. It's a good time, I think, these are good times for like lawyers and like cases and things like that. You have Jupiter there, so it seems like justice should be served. But it also sextiling Pluto, so whoever's in power is going to make sure that things sway the way that it's supposed to sway. So, there could be lies that come out. We are dealing with Mercury and Scorpio. A lot of times those are things that are hidden, things that you have to really dig deep for and find. A lot of times journalism, detective work, all of that stuff kind of, and people that are working in that arena are trying to dig out what's really going on and like exposing that. And are things being exposed to be helpful? Are things being exposed to be to make things worse? Like it's kind of like you think you have the truth, and for the most part you might, but the truth is kind of also relative, especially because Mercury's still trining Neptune during this whole time. So there is this like, I have the truth, no actually this is the truth, no actually this is the truth, and then everybody's like running around pretty much thinking they have it because of that sun square Jupiter, but like who really does, and at the end, does it matter? Because maybe the idea is to just to have a certain level of chaos, so those are all like kind of energies that are happening. It's very murky in terms of what people think is right this week. And I think, and also with the lunar eclipse, that's just again another shadow. So like things are presented this week to be good, but are they, and really reading the bottom line and seeing what really is going on underneath is, I think, going to be really, really important. So next up, we have the eclipse. We have a lunar eclipse that's happening in the sign of Taurus, and that's going to be at 11:57 Hawaii Standard Time, 1:57 Pacific Standard Time, and 3:57 on the East Coast on the 19th. So the sun is in the sign of Scorpio. Taurus has the moon. They're in opposition, which is why it's a full moon. So it is happening, this particular full moon is happening by the nodes. And whenever we have a full or new moon by the nodes, that almost always results in an eclipse, whether that be a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse. This is a lunar eclipse. So essentially it is the sun and the moon in opposition, and the earth is in between them. And the earth is casting a shadow on the moon. Now, some of us will be able to see that depending upon where we live in the world, and others of us might not. What's interesting about this particular eclipse, one, it's happening in Taurus where the moon is exalted. So that is where the moon is able to do its lunar things very well. So much about like comfort, so much about like, having like nice, beautiful things that are around us, that we have like a stable environment, not wanting to kind of sort of rock the boat, so to speak. Both Scorpio and Taurus are fixed signs. Now we already have Uranus and Taurus anyway. That's kind of sort of, kind of throwing things into the mix that make it challenging and difficult just anyway. So that doesn't feel comfortable. But, the moon is trying to do this like beautiful lunar thing that it does when the moon is exalted in Taurus. However, we have an eclipse. So we have Uranus there that's shaking things up and bringing new things and kind of awakening things and making us a little bit more rebellious. Like, what is it that we really want? What is it that we really value? What does comfort really look like to us? What does stability really look like to us in terms of our food, in terms of like our lives and our home and all of the things that are kind of foundational in our lives? There is construction going on. So excuse me if it gets loud. So we have this lunar eclipse that's happening. That's like, what is it that we really value? What is it that's important to us? What are the tangible things that we want to hold on to, or what are the things that we have to let go of? Because with this new cycle, which is what this particular eclipse is, it's kind of off axis. This new cycle is kind of a preview as to what's going to be happening later with these eclipses that will be happening in both Taurus and in Scorpio. So this is kind of sort of interesting because this is about the things that we value, the things that are tangible, places where we have beautiful new growth, and places where we're letting go of something, where there's a death, where there's some sort of something that's taken away in order for it to kind of regrow again. Where are we being reborn? Where is the place that we can't take things with us? Death is all about like, letting go, the ultimate let go, so to speak. We can't take the valuable things that we have in life with us. And so we're kind of like talking about that. And it's happening in different places in your chart, of course, but make sure you look at where Taurus and Scorpio are, where that axis is, because that's where you're going to be feeling this energy for the next 18 months in those two places. And it's really the lunar and solar eclipses are just going to go back and forth between Taurus and Scorpio. So those two areas, and specifically what houses they're in, are going to have that activity. So it'll be back to back. This is kind of sort of back to back. This is why we call it eclipse season, or why we call it like the eclipse cycle, because we will have the culmination of the eclipse that was happening in Gemini and Sagittarius, which happened in May. The culmination of that eclipse is happening in December with the new moon. So we're ending that particular cycle because we've been having these eclipses for the last year and a half, or really since I think June 2020. We've been having them in Gemini, Sagittarius, Gemini, Sagittarius. So those two areas of your life might have been lit up. Now it's moving into Taurus, Scorpio. So now you're going to feel that energy in those two areas. So it's going to feel like a shift. Again, eclipses don't bring necessarily new things. They just heighten whatever it is that you're dealing with, or whatever it is that you're bringing about. It kind of sort of speeds that up and makes it quickly come to surface. So sometimes there can be a little bit of challenge in terms of like, how fast things are going, and you feeling like, wow, it's something suddenly just happened, but it was kind of always there cooking in the background. Now, a couple of things about eclipses that are very important is that you're not really working your magic during this time. It's not really a great time for manifestation or for some bringing new things into your life. That's not really what it's about. It is a full moon, so a lot of times people release, people are kind of letting go of things. And so, releasing things and letting things go, I think, are fine, but like manifesting things, not really necessarily the best time, at least with this full moon and also with the new moon that's coming up next month. You just want to chill out on that, and then you can like start again a little bit later. We finish everything with the sun entering Sagittarius. It's on November 21st through December 21st. We will be in Sagittarius season. Definitely is going to have a different energy. Sagittarius is more of a masculine sign. It's immutable, so we're coming out of the fixed energy of Scorpio. It's a fire sign, so it still will have kind of that fiery element because, of course, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, which has a fiery element. So we're kind of staying in line with the fire, but it's a little bit different because it's more optimistic, it's more positive. It is Jupiter ruled, so it's kind of more expansive, bringing like ideas to us, bringing big ideas, big dreams, going outside, being in nature, connecting with people, things that are foreign, religion, ideas, philosophy, astrology, tarot. Really good time to kind of sort of do all of that. It tends to be a much more jovial time for people and for people connecting with things. Jupiter is also nicknamed the guru, so it could be a time where you have a deep spiritual evaluation, or you're reevaluating things. You're kind of sort of coming up with your own personal philosophy, or you're letting go of a certain aspect of religion and spirituality. Maybe if it was heavy dogma, you were like, this is not what I want anymore. I'm actually actually moving into something different, and I'm going to do something different. So it could also mean that as well. So that is what I have for you for your forecast for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I really hope that this is helpful for you and you find some benefit to this. So make sure you like and you subscribe. You share it with people. If you have any questions, make sure you put them below. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and I hope to see you in the next video. Aloha.